The arena was silent except for the sound of metal doors sliding open. Dust hung in the air, catching the dim light that spilled across the wide floor. The seats above were filled with alien spectators from different worlds, their eyes glowing in colors that showed both curiosity and disdain. They had come to see something they thought would be quick and amusing: the defeat of a human. Captain Elias Kane walked into the arena with steady steps. His uniform was torn, dirt clinging to his shoulders, but his eyes were calm. He had been captured only 2 days ago when defending a colony outpost. The raiders had overwhelmed his small squad, but he had fought until the very end. Now, instead of being executed in silence, he was placed here, forced into a duel for the entertainment of the Empire. His opponent entered from the opposite side. She was tall, nearly a head taller than him, her skin shimmering with a metallic hue that caught the faint glow of the torches. She belonged to the Velrath Empire, a warrior class that prided itself on strength, speed, and dominance. In her hand was a curved blade with an edge that gleamed like liquid fire. She pointed it at him as the crowd cheered for her, chanting her name. The alien warrior tilted her head, her expression a mix of arrogance and cold amusement. "Human," she said, her voice carrying through the loudspeakers so that every spectator could hear. "Your kind should never have stepped beyond your little blue world. You are weak. You are prey. Any last words before I end this farce?" Elias stopped only a few feet away, the sand crunching under his boots. He looked at her blade, then at her stance. His eyes didn't hold fear. Instead, a small smile touched his lips. "Yeah," he said calmly, his voice steady even under the weight of the entire arena's attention. "You're holding it wrong." Laughter rolled across the stands. Aliens of different shapes and sizes leaned forward, some pounding the railings in amusement. To them it sounded like foolish bravado, the kind of humor prey makes before being eaten. But a few sharp-eyed warriors in the higher seats paused. They studied the human's expression and realized it wasn't a joke. His words carried quiet confidence, not desperation. The alien warrior narrowed her eyes. Bold words for someone about to die. Elias shrugged, keeping his voice even. "You'll see soon enough." The announcer's voice echoed across the arena. "The duel begins." The warrior tightened her grip, preparing to strike. Her posture was wide, her blade angled forward with the tip aimed at his chest. It was a position meant to intimidate, a stance that looked powerful from a distance. But Elias had seen enough fights to know it left openings. Too much weight on her forward leg, too much tension in her arm, and her grip. It was firm but too high, making the blade slower to redirect. Elias had no weapon yet. By the rules of this duel, one would be given to him only after the first strike was attempted. The aliens thought it was amusing to give humans a disadvantage, but Elias wasn't worried. Weapons were tools. A poor fighter with the best weapon still lost. The warrior lunged, her blade cutting through the air with speed. Gasps echoed from the stands at the force of her movement. Elias stepped aside, smooth and effortless. The blade sliced past him, close enough that he could feel the air shift against his cheek, but not close enough to touch him. He didn't flinch. She leads with her right hand, Elias thought to himself, studying her movements as if he were back in training simulations. Fast but overcommitted, predictable. The alien recovered quickly, spinning with a snarl, her eyes flashing. "Stand still, human!" Elias smirked. "If you knew how to hold that blade, maybe I would." The crowd roared with laughter again, but this time there was a ripple of unease beneath it. Some were beginning to see that he wasn't stumbling or panicking. He was studying, calculating. She attacked again, heavier this time, aiming to crush his defense before he even had one. But Elias ducked, his boots sliding across the sand as he pivoted behind her. The blade struck the ground where he had been a heartbeat before. Sparks flew. Finally, one of the guards tossed him a weapon, a short staff made of reinforced alloy, not even half the length of her blade. It was meant to amuse the audience further, a human armed with a stick against a warrior with a master-forged sword. Elias turned the staff in his hands, testing its weight. He gave a small nod of approval. It was enough. The alien warrior growled, spinning toward him with frustration building in her strikes. She attacked high, low, side to side, but Elias blocked with precision, each movement smooth, as though he had rehearsed her every swing. He tapped the staff against her weapon once, twice, redirecting instead of meeting force with force. The crowd gasped as sparks danced again and again, but the human never faltered. Between each block, he spoke in a voice just loud enough for her to hear. Too much power on that swing. Bad balance. You're leaving your side open. Each word made her angrier, but also less focused. Her strikes grew wider, her breathing harsher. Elias, on the other hand, grew calmer. His movements were steady, like water flowing around stone. The fight slowed for him, each strike an opportunity to observe. For the audience, it looked like a game, one fighter swinging with fury, the other moving as if the battle were already decided. When he saw her shoulders tense for a downward strike, Elias knew his moment had come. He shifted his weight, sidestepped, and placed the staff against the back of her wrist. With a quick twist, the blade flew from her hand, spinning through the air before landing in the sand several feet away. The crowd went silent. The alien warrior froze, staring at her empty hand. Elias stood before her, the staff now still, his expression unreadable. He didn't move to strike. He didn't need to. The message was clear. For the first time in that arena, the humans in the audience, slaves, workers, travelers, sat taller. They saw what the others had just seen. A single human, unarmed at first, had stood against a champion and turned the fight into something else. A lesson, and this was only the beginning. The silence in the arena lasted only a moment before voices began to rise again. Whispers turned into gasps, and gasps turned into shouts. The crowd that had expected a quick and bloody duel now sat in disbelief. They had just seen something impossible, a human disarming one of the Velrath warriors. Captain Elias Kane didn't lift his staff for a finishing blow. He simply stood there, breathing evenly, his eyes calm as ever. The alien warrior, her hand empty, her chest rising and falling with sharp breaths, glared at him in shock. She had never been humiliated this way before. Her blade lay in the sand, glimmering faintly under the arena lights. She looked at it, then back at him. "Pick it up," she hissed. "This fight isn't over." Elias tilted his head slightly. "You lost the weapon." "The fight is over." The words rippled through the crowd. The announcer seemed confused, unsure whether to declare the duel finished. The rules were old, written long before humans had ever stepped into this empire's domain. Technically, losing a weapon meant defeat, but the alien warrior refused to accept it. She lunged forward with her bare hands, moving like a predator desperate to strike. The crowd roared again, some in approval, others in outrage. Elias didn't retreat. He slid back one step, shifted his staff, and blocked her strike cleanly. "You're letting anger blind you," he said, his tone still calm. "That's your real weakness." Her fist swung wildly, fueled more by rage than control. Every punch she threw, Elias deflected with the staff. Every kick she aimed, he turned aside with practiced movements. He never struck back harder than needed. He wasn't here to humiliate her further. He was here to make a point. The audience began to see it too. What had looked like luck at first was now something more. Elias wasn't surviving. He was controlling the duel. Every move was measured. Every response was deliberate. The alien warrior's fury only made the difference clearer. At last she overextended. She swung her fist wide, trying to break through his defense. Elias pivoted smoothly, letting her momentum carry her forward. In one motion, he brought the staff down gently against the back of her knee. Her leg buckled and she fell to the ground. The arena grew silent once more. Elias stood over her, the staff pointed down but not touching her. His eyes softened. It doesn't have to end with more pain. For the first time, the alien warrior hesitated. Her pride screamed at her to keep fighting, but her body ached, and deep down she realized he was right. He had beaten her, without cruelty, without needless harm. Slowly, Elias lowered the staff and stepped back. He wasn't here to destroy her. He was here to show the truth. Humans weren't weak. They were adaptable, clever, and unafraid to stand against giants. The announcer finally spoke, his voice breaking the tension. "The duel is over. Victory." To the human, the arena erupted. Some shouted in disbelief, others cheered in surprise. For the humans forced to watch, it was like a spark of light in a dark sky. They had seen one of their own not just survive, but triumph. Elias walked to the center of the arena where the fallen blade lay in the sand. He picked it up and studied it briefly. The weapon was beautifully crafted, sharp and deadly, but also heavy and rigid. He turned toward the alien warrior and held it out to her. Her eyes widened. She hadn't expected mercy, much less respect. Slowly, with trembling hands, she took it back. She looked at him, confused. "Why spare me? You had the chance to end it." Elias gave a faint smile. "Because it's not about killing. It's about showing you, and them, that humans don't fight the way you think we do. She looked at him for a long moment, then lowered her gaze. Something had shifted in her expression. The arrogance was gone, replaced with something closer to respect. The guards approached, unsure of what to do. The duel was finished, but the result was one no one had expected. The humans in the crowd whispered with hope, while the Velrath nobles muttered in disbelief. This wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a message. Elias was escorted back toward the holding chambers, but even as he walked, he could hear the ripples spreading through the crowd. Voices carried his words, repeating them again and again. "You're holding it wrong." What had started as a taunt was now being repeated as a lesson. Inside the chambers, one of the younger alien guards looked at him differently. There was no longer scorn in his eyes, only curiosity. "How did you do that?" the guard asked quietly when no one else was near. Elias shrugged. "By not fighting their way. Humans don't win by being stronger. We win by being smarter. We learn. We adapt." The guard nodded slowly, as if those words planted a seed of doubt about everything he had been told about humans. Hours later, rumors had already spread across the Empire. The duel was being retold in taverns, in barracks, in halls of power. Some said the human had used tricks. Others insisted he had revealed the truth of his species. A few even feared what might happen if more humans fought this way. Meanwhile, the alien warrior sat in silence in her quarters. Her blade rested across her knees, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She replayed the duel in her mind. His calm eyes, his steady movements, his refusal to kill her even when he had the chance. It shook her pride, but it also lit a new kind of fire within her. For the first time, she wondered if perhaps the galaxy had underestimated humans. Back in his cell, Elias rested against the wall, his hands folded behind his head. He wasn't worried about what would come next. He knew this victory wasn't just his. It belonged to every human who had been looked down on by the galaxy. And though the fight was over, Elias understood that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had noticed. And once the galaxy noticed humanity, nothing would ever be the same again. The news of the duel spread faster than fire through dry grass. By the next morning, the story had traveled far beyond the arena walls. Traders carried it to distant ports, soldiers whispered it across barracks, and officials tried to control the flow of information, though it was too late. Everyone in the Velrath Empire now knew. A human had beaten one of their champions. For centuries, the Velrath had painted humans as fragile newcomers, unfit for the brutal order of the galaxy. They allowed humans into their space, but only as workers, merchants, or subjects. Warriors, in their view, came from stronger species. But now, one human had changed that image with nothing more than skill, patience, and a single staff. In the holding chamber, Elias Kane sat quietly, his eyes closed. He wasn't thinking of his own victory. He was thinking of what it meant. He had seen the faces in the crowd, both the shock of the Velrath and the spark of hope in the humans who lived under their rule. This was more than a duel. It was a shift. A guard entered the chamber. This one was older, with silver lines etched into his dark armor. He studied Elias for a long moment before speaking. "They are saying your people are not as weak as we believed." Elias opened his eyes, his tone calm. "We've never been weak. Just underestimated." The guard tilted his head. There was no anger in his expression, only thoughtfulness. "You could have killed her. Why didn't you?" Elias leaned back against the wall. "Because the galaxy already thinks humans are dangerous when we're desperate. I wanted to show that we're dangerous even when we're in control. Mercy isn't weakness. It's choice." The guard said nothing more, but his silence carried respect. He left, and Elias was alone again, though not truly. He knew eyes across the Empire were turning toward Earth now. Meanwhile, the alien warrior sat in her quarters, her blade across her knees. She replayed every moment of the duel in her mind. His movements had been precise, his words sharp but true. She remembered how he had said, "You're holding it wrong." At the time, it sounded like mockery. Now she understood it was something else. It was instruction. A human had taught her, a Velrath champion, something about combat. That realization stung her pride, but it also opened her mind. For the first time, she questioned the Empire's teaching that humans were weak. She had seen his strength. Not brute strength, but a different kind. Control, patience, adaptation. And perhaps that was even more dangerous. Across the Empire, other species discussed the event. Some laughed, saying it was a fluke. Others grew uneasy, whispering that humanity's true nature had been revealed. The Galactic Council, an assembly of leaders from many empires, began to debate in private chambers. Was Earth truly harmless, or had they just seen a glimpse of something that could shift the balance of power? In the lower districts of the Empire's capital, where human workers lived under strict control, the story spread like a secret song. Children whispered it in alleyways. Men and women repeated it while working, and for the first time they felt pride. One of us stood against them, they said. One of us showed them we are more than what they think. Elias remained in the holding chamber for another day before being summoned. When he stepped into the council hall, he was met with rows of alien leaders, their eyes sharp, their voices low as they whispered among themselves. At the center stood the Velrath general who had ordered the duel. "You have caused a storm," the general said, his tone heavy. "Your kind was supposed to entertain us. Instead, you embarrassed us." Elias met his gaze without fear. "Truth is never embarrassing. You wanted to show the galaxy humans are weak. Instead, you showed them we can stand on our own." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some counselors frowned, others nodded. The general narrowed his eyes. "Do not mistake one victory for dominance. You are still only human." Elias allowed himself a small smile. "And that's what you should fear. Because one human can change everything. Imagine what all of us together can do." The chamber grew quiet. His words carried weight far beyond the walls. For the first time, many in that hall began to think of humans not as pawns but as potential rivals, or allies. Later, when Elias was escorted back, he overheard two counselors whispering. One said, "If the humans fight like this, they could be dangerous." The other replied, "Or they could be the allies we need." Elias didn't comment. He simply walked with his steady stride, knowing the seed had been planted. That night, in the shadows of the city, a small group of humans gathered. They had heard of the duel and of Elias's words. To them, he wasn't just a soldier anymore, he was a symbol, a reminder that humans could rise above the labels placed on them. One of the younger men whispered, "If he could stand against them, then maybe we all can." And so hope began to spread, quiet at first like the first stars appearing in a dark sky, but it would grow brighter with time. The alien warrior who had faced Elias also began to change. She no longer walked with the same arrogance. She trained harder, not just to regain her pride, but to learn. She remembered his words about her mistakes, about balance, about patience. She told herself she would improve, not to defeat him, but to understand him. Weeks later, rumors reached Earth. A human had beaten a Velrath champion in their own arena. Families gathered around screens. Children listened wide-eyed, and governments took notice. The galaxy had underestimated them, but no longer. Elias Kane's name became known across the stars. Not because he killed, but because he didn't. Not because he shouted, but because he smiled. His calm words, "You're holding it wrong," were repeated like a phrase of defiance, a reminder that humans would never again bow quietly. The galaxy trembled, not with fear alone, but with realization. Humanity had stepped onto the stage and nothing would ever push them back into the shadows. And as for Elias, he didn't see himself as a hero. He was a soldier who had done what needed to be done. But deep down, he knew something greater had begun. The duel had been just the first spark. The fire had yet to spread,